What's up, purists? Let's talk about the SA10 and their options. So one of the things that I get asked quite a bit these days, I'll get a picture of a part or a question regarding the options of the 1993 Saleen SA10. So let's go through a little brief history of it and discuss the options because, well, it's really not simple. It's kind of a varying degree of different options because the cars are all different. So a brief history. I know in 1993, Saleen, through the Saleen Owners and Enthusiasts Club and Team Saleen at the time, they sent out a letter to all of the people in that group. And if you were a member, you got invited to purchase one of these cars. That was how it was introduced to the Saleen faithful at the time. It was given, I guess, the moniker, an opportunity of a lifetime. That was actually in the letter sent to everyone. And I believe most of the owners still have the documentation of those letters. That was something that was pretty special. You got a basically hand-stamped envelope with information in it that was sent out to all of the members at the time, inviting them to purchase one of these cars because it was a very special opportunity. They were VIN sequential and those kind of things. So we'll step back from that. That's how it was introduced to the Saleen faithful at the time. Prior to that, John McCauley, who was the president of the Saleen Club at the time, he had a hankering for a car that he could do basically carte blanche to. He could go to Saleen and say, I want anything out of the catalog and throw it at it. He was a big Saleen enthusiast at the time, had a couple of cars, had purchased a couple of cars new, and through my conversations with him, he mentioned that he had approached Steve a couple of times of saying, hey, I'd like to have this catalog option or these things out of the catalog put on it. And Steve kind of pushed back. It was like, yeah, no, I don't really want to get into doing individual cars, basically carte blanche from the catalog, because it really was challenging to manage production. And I know that John approached him 2 or 3 times, according to him, asking, I'd like to have this, I'd like to be able to put this in it, can you do this for me? And I think there were a few things that were done to his cars for him, but as far as just opening the catalog up that had parts in it and throwing basically the book at it, that was not something that Steve was really keen on doing. So I think later on down the road, it took a couple of years, but in the final approach to Steve, I know that John had said, hey, so you got a 10th anniversary coming up, so why don't we take and do 10 cars, celebrating 10 years, and we offer it up to where the Saleen enthusiasts could get what they wanted out of the catalog. And somehow, I think Steve bit on the idea. I'm sure there was some back and forth. I'm not saying it was all John's idea, although it was presented that way to me. I'm fairly certain that's not exactly how things go in conversation. There's a give and take, so I'm sure Steve and John were back and forth with ideas and those kind of things. So basically what it ended up is these cars, the options are whatever was in the Saleen catalog. Now, what makes that so special is there was no model run of Saleen's prior or since that Saleen has allowed an owner to do that. So step back. I know there's guys out there, well, but Bob, my car was sent to JBA by Saleen and it's got a roll bar in it, or I've got headers on it, or Saleen. So I do know that there are one-offs, there are one cars out there that have certain options or certain things done to them by the first owner that they paid Saleen to do. What those cars are not is a complete model run, meaning all the cars got it. So they're unique, they're one-offs. There's plenty of those out there. I know that there are plenty of those out there. So these cars were basically a model run where you could take what would be, I guess, is catalog 1 and catalog 2, because I know in '93 there were two different catalogs. There was a 1 and a 2. In those catalogs, whatever parts were in it could be put on the SA10. That's kind of what makes them very unique. It's what makes them so desirable, because one, they're all different. None of them are the same. So it's really unique because of the catalog parts. Now, that's to say this, I've been in a sales position before. I've worked in sales, and you guide your clients to something that makes sense for you as a business. Now, there may be catalog options that people wanted and they did not get because it just didn't make sense. Profitable, for one. 2, installing them would be challenging. 3, there's a number of different things, I think, when it comes down to it. But what it comes down to is what was reasonable to do and be profitable for Saleen. And let's be honest, there at the time in '93, you're coming out of a recession. These cars were built more in the '94 model year, started October of '93 and ended in May of '94. So the '94 Mustang was already in production when these cars were being built. So it's a process at that time that made sense for Saleen, and then to give, well, the buyers what they would like. I think there's a happy medium in there. So the similarities, what is the same between all of the cars? Because they look the same at first glance, they all look the same. However, they are not all the same. But what is common between the cars is the exterior, the decals. All of the decals are the same on all of the cars. The hood is the same on all the cars, although, there's a caveat there, the hood had issues when it was produced, the very first run, and there's a first run and second run. I could really get into splitting hairs with all those details, but I'm not gonna do that in this video. But there is a first run and a second run hood. Some of the cars have had the first run hood replaced with the second run hood because Saleen actually sent to the delivering dealer of the cars a second hood for them to paint and put on the cars. So some cars have had that hood put on, other cars have not. But the hoods outside look identical. They have these vents, they have this stripe, they have the supercharged 302 with the white vinyl decal, and this is paint on all the cars. This is vinyl, FYI. So the decals are the same. The ground effects are the same on all the cars. The wheels are all the same. They are the 3-piece stern with what people call the flat lip. It's not a spun barrel, it is actually a cast aluminum barrel that is cut. So that's the same. The front brakes are actually the same on all the cars. The rear brakes are the same on all the cars. And then finally, pretty much the last thing that is similar between all of them is the gauges. These gauges here were used in all the cars. And they were all supercharged. So with that, that's pretty much where the similarities end. The rest of them as far as individuals ordering them, all the options, the rest of the options, it's different. I know as far as suspension goes, well, let's do this. Let's step back. Let's break it down into the different areas, because if I start going all over the place, I'll bounce back and forth. So let's go with the suspension. The brakes are all the same on all the cars, and that's an Alcon setup with a 2-piece rotor and a modified Fox spindle. But as far as the shocks and struts, I do know that one particular car got adjustable suspension. The other cars did not get adjustable suspension. So the springs, I want to say that one car may have gotten race springs in it. The other cars got regular production springs. So you can see that's, I mean, just right off the bat, the suspension's different depending on what owner ordered the car. So the suspension can be different. The next thing up would be the drivetrain. So some of them, let's see here, the options in the catalog were cylinder heads, there were balance and blueprinted short blocks, upgraded superchargers, Tremec transmissions, let's see what else, gear ratios, and then there is a panhard bar. At least I've got it on this car, and I know of other cars that have come with that, but I'm not sure all of the cars got the panhard bar. So drivetrain, you could get aluminum cylinder heads, you could get iron upgraded cylinder heads, which would be GT40 irons, camshaft, roller rockers, valve covers, intake or no intake, as far as the Saleen intake. You could upgrade the supercharger to what would be at the time a B trim. So there's plenty of different options as far as drivetrain. Tremec transmission, you could get the 3550 put in these cars. I actually put a 3550 in this car. And the rear gear ratio, it could be 308, 327, 355, 373. There's a number of different ones because that's what Saleen offered with these cars. So the drivetrains could all be different. You also have the potential for an upgraded aluminum radiator or a 3-row HD, as they call it, radiator. There was a race aluminum radiator in the catalog. I don't believe any of the cars got those, although I do know that one car at this point does have an aluminum radiator in it. But the cars themselves, as far as the drivetrain, they're all different. Some cars have just a stock motor in it with a supercharger on it. Others have cylinder heads, camshaft, roller rockers, valve covers, as far as polished or chrome. So there's, a number of different things. I think the one common drivetrain piece between all of them is the headers. They all came with ceramic coated headers. But the catback is different on some cars. I know that one car in particular got what would be the SC at the time catback, the Dynamax mufflers. Others just use stock catbacks, so that's different. The interior, man, there's a number of different interiors. There are cars with Recaro seats, just like this car that I have here, put in this one. There are ones with race Recaros, and then there's one with flow-fit seats. And the flow-fit seats in that car are actually, they're black, yellow, and white, but they're stitched up just like the SSC leather seats that you see in the SSC, which the SSC is gray, yellow, and white. So there's a stereo box like the SSC in one of them in the very back, as far as the speaker box. Rear seat deletes, roll, like the 2-point roll bar, 4-point roll bar, 6-point roll bar. There's a number of different interior options that owners chose. So these cars, there's really not a whole lot of similarities between each individual car. The subframes, I know one car got tri-letter subframes, others just had the standard bolt-in subframes. There's a number of different things in these cars that makes them very unique, which is what makes them so desirable because they're really a one of one. Every car, all 9 that were produced, are a one of one. And well, let's just be honest, this one, it's not in the registry, so it's really more of a, you call it a tribute or a clone or whatever, but the VIN number is car number 4. That was the other thing that made them special. I don't know that Saleen's done anything before or since as far as one model run where they ordered sequential VIN numbers. I know that there are batches of cars that were produced where they have VIN numbers, but they were not produced in sequence of numbers like the SA10 was. So it's a very unique car because the way it was optioned out. And the options really are that catalog that had anything and everything in it as far as performance parts. And really there's not a whole lot of things that are similar between the cars outside of the exterior look, the wheels, and the brakes. The rest of them are all anything goes as far as the option. And that's kind of what was said in the letter that was sent out to them, is that you could have pretty much anything you wanted, but they all had to look the same. And that they do. If you look at them, they're all very much the same at first glance. But when you dig deeper and look, especially like the one with the, it's car number 3 that has the flow fits in it, you can see the white headrests that stick through the window. That's one that jumps out real quick. But the other is, I know which ones to look for roll bars, that kind of thing. So, but there's a couple of cards we'll put up. One is SA10 number 2, so take a look at that. And then the other one is the actual story on what I call Almost 4, because it was almost car number 4, and the history on it. So take a look at those videos on our channel. Hopefully that's kind of shed some light on the options. Really, it just kind of is what it is with the Saleen catalog. If it's a Saleen part from 93, 94 that went on a Fox body, they're pretty much, it's pretty much an SA10 option. And oh, it's something that I did fail to mention, is that some of them came with the boost and fuel pressure gauges in the vents. Stereos were different too. Some of them had CD players, some of them had tape decks, some of them had the dual CD and tape. So there's a lot of different things on those cars. There's just so many things. I could probably sit down and really think of even more things because, well, they're just very unique. It's not something that Saleen, well, it's the only time that Saleen's done something like that. Now, I know there are other anniversary models. I know with the 20th anniversary models that you could get an extreme car or just a regular supercharged car, but those were group options. It was not a carte blanche individual, this is what I want. And because they sat down with all the owners, you put down some money on to get your spot, and then you would basically have a phone call with Steve and go through what you would like to do. And of course, like I said before, I think in those conversations there was some steering of, yeah, we don't want to necessarily do these options or that thing to this car because of whatever reason. I think there's obviously some limitations when it comes to that. You're not just going to get into the full-on custom fabrication. I mean, the cars were right around $45,000, $50,000 in 1993, 94. So that's a lot of money back then. But hopefully that helps clarify some things. I know there's a lot of people that send me a picture of an intake. Was this an SA10 intake? Are these SA10 headers? Are these SA10 wheels? Are these SA10 seats? And the truth is that if it was in the Saleen catalog in 93 and 94 and it fit a Fox body, it would potentially be an SA10 option. That doesn't mean that an SA10 actually came with it, but it would have been an option. So anyways, that's all with this. As I always say, whether you're driving them or restoring them, always enjoy them. Peace.